Hello, it's me, CG, and I'm back from school! Yay! So, because I've been gone for so long, I decided to make this video a little different from usual by doing a talk through of my process. It's a little sped up because I can't record in real time. One, because my recording program doesn't let me do that, and two, because this drawing took me 3 separate days to finish. I apologize, by the way, for some parts that I might have skipped. Those are because I paused the recording to take a break and I forgot to hit record again. But I hope you enjoy the Speedpaint tutorial thing nonetheless. Also, keep in mind that this is how I draw in color, and it's not the only way to draw in color, so feel free to use my process as a reference to yours if you'd like, but don't be scared to try other things, okay? Now, without further ado, I will begin the speed paint tutorial thingy. Yay, 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 yay. If you've subscribed to me for a long time now, the piece on the left is actually from 2017, and what I'm doing is a redraw. Redrawing old works is probably the best way to see how much you've improved, because you see the things you would do differently and you get to compare them. First is the pose. I usually don't sketch out too much, I just make a very vague sketch of what I see in my head. Then I'll go over it with a cleaner sketch/line art layer. I don't do clean line arts because I paint over them and it serves more like a guide than an actual piece of the finished work. I also tend to change some parts, like her hand, which in the initial sketch was similar to the 2017 one, but I changed it to a somehow more realistic and believable pose. In doing hand poses, I like to do the pose myself, and then I look at the mirror while I try to draw it. I also made her body show more movement by exaggerating the direction of her shoulders and hips, which in turn should give a more sultry look, I guess. Because, Ahri is supposed to charm people. Moving on to the coloring part, I like to set a gray background underneath just to make the colors easier to see, especially if the skin tone's too light. And then I set the line art layer to multiply, lower the opacity, then work on the color per part. When coloring, it usually depends on your style and what you're most comfortable with, but what I like to do for skin, or in general actually, is start with a lighter shadow because I'm honestly scared of working with high contrasts immediately, and then I build it up if I find it lacking. I use a custom brush that blends when the pen is not pressed too hard, but the blend is not too clean. I don't like using a blur tool for blending my colors. It's just not my taste. I like a more natural blend, I guess, for a more painterly feel. Now, because I don't actually use the line art, it's important to see what the colors look like without it. So if you'll be following this tutorial, try to make it a habit to turn off the line art layer every now and then. I keep the eyes, eyebrows, and mouth in the same layer as the face so that it looks more like an actual part of the face rather than it obviously being on top, if that makes sense. I don't really know how to explain this with proper words, I'm sorry. By the way, I like to work on one layer per part instead of separating the layers for the base colors and shadows, Because if I did, the shadows would come out too harsh and the blend wouldn't look too natural. For eyebrows, I wanted to try and see what it looked like if I drew the individual strands, but I ended up not liking it, so I changed it into a single block of color. But don't forget to blend out the ends to make it look like an actual parrot face. For the red marks on Ari's face, I put it on a different layer because I didn't want to disrupt the blending on her cheeks and so that the color would stay true to what I picked. On a separate layer again, I like to add colors to up the saturation and contrast and to bring color to the character's features. This is the time where I use the water tool, then I lower the opacity so it's not too obvious, but still noticeable. By the way, if it makes any sense, it's easier to work with the parts that are under, and then you work your way to the over parts since you're working on just one layer. This way, you get to avoid mistakes and painting over anything. The neck is now in a layer under the head layer because it's technically a different part. This way, it's also easier to color the neck without worrying about dirtying the head layer. So I'll just be repeating the same process for the majority of this video. Paint over the sketch with the base color, put the layer in lock so the shadows won't go out of bounds, add some highlight and some soft outlines, and move on to the next layer. Really took my time in coloring her clothes because in the works I did before this, their dresses really need more TLC, and I didn't want that to happen in this one. When it comes to folds in clothes, I just put them wherever I think they would go. You kind of have to familiarize yourself with how certain cloth stretches and folds, according to where it's put against. If you're having a hard time with that, you can always wear a similar piece of clothing and do the pose, and then look at the mirror, or have someone else wear the thing and pose for you. For the patterns on Ari's clothes, I did it in a separate layer and played with the layer modes and opacity to get the right effect. I even added a gradient blur just to make sure it blended with the clothes nicely, but it still stood out against the shadows and folds of the clothes when it wasn't supposed to. So I used a soft eraser to soften the colors in the folds of the clothes. For the ribbon thingy on her dress, I used the darkest color as a base first because if I put the actual base color on top, it would create a natural shade. This technique is good for smaller things, so you won't have to spend time adding detail to it when you can barely see it when you're zoomed out.
For darker hair, it's actually fine to not give the shadows as much detail. Instead, you could focus on the highlights. Besides, I was planning on adding a dark overlay to give a more ominous feel to the piece, so you wouldn't really see the shadows on her hair in the finished work. It would have just been a waste of effort. If you watched the 2017 video, that's exactly what happened. I put so much time and effort onto Ahri's hair, only to see it back it out by the dark overlay I created. Now I'm actually merging all the layers together to clean up certain areas that look too unnatural. There's really no way to teach this other than do what you think looks right.
Here I'm adding new layers in different modes. Usually I play between multiply, shade and shine, and add colors where I see them fit. This is for areas that you think need a little more vibrance or depth. The colors that you add don't necessarily have to be the same color as your base color.
Lastly, I'm adding some very low opacity overlays in different colors to get the color that feels just right and the finished piece. This is another trial and error process where you just do what you think looks right. And we're done! Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this talk through tutorial thingy. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this one. If you're interested, I'm opening commissions temporarily, and you can see my prices here. Or you can see it on my Twitter at CGNyan. That's at CEEGEENYAN. Again, thanks for watching. If you want to see more of my other videos, please subscribe. It would really mean a lot. Bye bye.